Hello, everyone, and welcome to our body image webinar today. I don't always take selfies is the name of it, and we're so glad you joined us. We want to move along very quickly because we only have an hour to do this. But to set the tone, set the stage, let me tell you first, my name is Carol Blackwell Curry, and I'll be your moderator today. We want to take a look at body image, and we're going to move along by making sure that you have an opportunity to hear from our wonderful presenters whom we'll introduce in a moment. And we make sure that we have question and answers at the end. Plus, please use the chat for anything that comes up for you throughout the discussion so that we don't miss any of your comments, your questions, your concerns. Our body image seminar is about perception, our perception of our physical self, and our thoughts and feelings that result from it. Now let's meet our presenters. Our first presenter is Celia Mion. She is the coordinator of quality assurance and quality improvement here at CHI in the Behavioral Health Department. Also, we have Shaquan Chambliss-Huggins, who is a primary care clinical coordinator, and Madeline Reyes, an advanced practice registered nurse. So we want to welcome them and are grateful to them for using their time with us today. We're going to get started with Madeline Reyes. Maddie.
Good morning, everybody. So I want to start off with an icebreaker. So the first thing I want to do is I want everybody to participate. I want you to write in the chat, or you can speak up about one thing that makes you unique. It could be anything. For example, one thing that makes me unique is that I'm a workaholic. Now everybody has an opportunity to mention in the chat what is one thing that makes them unique.
I feel like what makes me unique is I am very sensitive, so I tend to be very intuitive and emotional.
Yay! Anybody else?
We have one comment in the chat. I'm very supportive of others, says Julie.
Okay. And I wanted to use this as an icebreaker because it's very important. Body image comes from your feelings, from your emotions. And I'm going to talk a little bit about self-esteem and how it affects all aspects of our life, including relationships. For example, what is the meaning of self-esteem to you? Anybody in the audience?
I think it's...
So go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. I think it's, kind of accepting yourself no matter where you are in life, and just like accepting like the good and the ugly all at once, and allowing yourself, to kind of move on from that, and, not be so bogged down by the negative thoughts that kind of come in and out.
Yes. And if we were to have a distorted definition of what self-esteem is, which is self-respect, what would be the negative outcomes? There's actually 3 things that can happen. For the first thing is low self-esteem can actually go pass to the children or even family members. And remember, human behavior, we tend to copy a lot of human behavior, and usually who we hang out with is usually how we're gonna act. The other thing that can happen if we have low self-esteem is a very high predictor for mental illness, including depression, anxiety, addiction, and eating disorder. And there's a very high risk that you might end up in an abusive relationship, and it gives a rise to affairs and infidelity. Does anybody have any questions?
I find it interesting that it gets passed down to children.
Yes.
From a parent.
Yes, and that's why it's very important that parents actually well, usually kids tend to copy their parents because that's all they know. So when we are born, who do we see? Mom and dad. And we tend to get a lot of qualities from mom and dad. So if mom is anxious, most likely the child is going to be anxious. If mom might be in an abusive relationship or might have confidence issues, most likely the child might have that type of quality as well. That's why it's very important, especially new parents, to get educated on that.
That
And that's
explains
why
a lot.
that's why nature versus nurture, it plays a very important role. So you want to surround your child with positivity, a positive environment, so that that is not only reflected in the household when they go out to other settings such as school or with their own friends, that is also something that shines through within them when they're dealing with other groups. So when Maddie was saying, Dr. Reyes is saying that there is a situation where a parent behaves a certain way, right? And then the child mimics that. The child also mimics when a parent says something about themselves as far as self-esteem. Oh, I don't look good in this, or oh, I don't want my hair like that because this is ugly, or oh, this makes me look such and such, right?
Yeah.
So when things like that does occur or whatever, it's something that they pick up in the household, and then it's spread around to wherever else that they go.
Wow. Little sponges, huh?
And we see that reflected in the social media now, and their TikToks and the way they dress and what we think. A lot of the times we tell our children, oh, that looks so sexy on you. The child doesn't even have any concept of what sexy is. And so we start already gender typing and body image with that statement just in and of itself, of a 5-year-old like in a little bikini or in a little, not that any of that dresses would be inappropriate. That's how you dress your child, but it's the language that's used to perpetuate a body image that is better than another.
Wow.
Okay, any more comments in the chat for anybody? I have a question. Why are some women more likely than others to develop a negative body image?
I think it has a lot to do with diet culture, and the way and also the verbiage we use when we describe certain women that look better than other women. It has a lot to do with semantics and just the how we define what a good looking person is rather than one that doesn't look good. And we see that a lot in different commercials and in things such as, this chocolate bar is guilt-free. So why would a food that you put in your body that you like make you guilty? Well, because you're going to gain weight, and gaining weight automatically in somebody's mind is a negative thing. Whereas in others, I can give you an example. My sister's very thin, and she used to feel that, she needed to gain weight. So then would she feel guilty for taking that protein bar that's, guilt-free, or one that's not, one that's more fatty than another? So it's not only the heavier set women that will feel guilty with statements like that, or statements like spa treatments that are meant to shrink your body. So, so my body has to shrink. Like, so why do I have to feel that I have to, fall into a certain box because of the marketing attraction there is to a certain type of image or not?
Yeah, I think also has to do with culture, definitely, and also some family members or some parents don't even realize that they're affecting the child. Like, for example, I come from a Hispanic household, and I remember growing up, my mom was like, "Oh, you're getting a little chunky. Why are you wearing those pants?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? Why are you eating that?" So unconsciously, as a kid, you're like, "Oh my God," you're watching everything that you're eating, that you're doing, that you're wearing, because you think that that's normal. And we tend to not accept our body as how it is. I mean, I will never be a size 1. That's not my body frame. That's how it is. So I had to come in acceptance that this is the type of body that I was given, and I'm okay with it, and I just have to work it.
Yeah.
But it also comes from usually growing up, whoever you were with when you were little, how they were talking to you. So it definitely culture plays a big role.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Uh-oh, we can't hear Shaquan.
As both young ladies were saying, I agree with everything. And it's kind of a combination and a mesh and a mulch of everything, right? So you have family on one end, and then you have society on another end. And as children, or even as we become aware of different things that are presented and said around us, as I don't know who it was who said that, yes, they're little sponges. So all of that stuff is absorbed, and then by the time you're able to truly process it and be able to actually express it, by that time your perception has already become your reality, regardless if that is the reality or not.
Okay. Okay. Moving forward. We ready to move forward, Shaquan?
Absolutely. Actually, I think I'm going to be out this way because that kind of ties up.
Oh yeah, I kind of entered the diet culture. So, another thing is fat phobia. You know, why do we have this phobia of gaining weight or looking a certain way? It all ties into the perception in our head when it comes to a certain look that we have to have. I mean, in the 1600s, and you see all the Da Vinci, all these artwork where the women are beautiful and big and have rolls, and they're hailed as pieces of art in that shape, whatever shape they're in. But then, slowly we move forward to corsets, right? And tightening them tighter, and waist cinching, and how people looked in like, Bridgerton times where you had to cinch their waist. And then I think that just kept going and kept going. We had we had people, artists and models and actors that with bulimia and stuff, because they were trying to look a certain way. Marilyn Monroe was a size 14, I think it was, and she was hailed as one of the most beautiful women, one of the most sexiest and beautiful women in the world. Where did that change, or how did we switch from being this wafer thin? I'm glad that now, I think we're a little talking after the fact, because now I think you see them everywhere. You see all sizes on all commercials, which will play into a little bit of what Shaquan's going to talk about later. And all media marketing is now more diverse in sizes. But it's almost like bittersweet, because it's like, why now you have the token fat girl in your marketing scheme, because now it's important to people. And it's a little bit like, I don't, why do I see what you're doing there? Like, you're trying to get me to buy your product because you've got the token fat girl in the commercial. So, I think we're a long ways away from it being normalized. Anybody would be normal. Not only about body image, we could talk about race, we could talk about sexuality and gender roles or whatever. And so we have, I think that's always going to be our struggle as humans. We're ignorant to some things, and that causes us to shun that and to shy away from it. So, people say things all the time. Oh, no, you don't, it's not that that picture's not bad, it's just the pose you're in. And automatically it's like, well, what's the worst that can happen if you pose a certain way where your roll showed a little bit? Oh, people think I'm fat, so why is that so bad? And I think that's what fat phobia is even people who have a little bit more weight on them feel the fat phobia from other people when they say things like, you have such a pretty face. And what does that automatically mean to you? It's like, well, you should be thinner because you have such a pretty face. I used to get that all the time. Not that I think I'm pretty, but people used to say that to me all the time.
Okay.
So
We have another question in the chat. How does it affect sex drive? How does all of this self-esteem and all of this name calling we do of ourselves and thoughts we have of others, how does it affect sex drive?
Well, like Celia mentioned about sexuality, we have to see sex as a human emotional connection, meaning feelings. What is self-esteem and body image? They're feelings and emotions within us. So if you have low self-esteem, negative emotions towards yourself, negative emotions towards your body, that's going to reflect in your sexual life. And hence, you're going to have lower sex drive, less likely to experience sexual pleasure, very hard communication between you and your partner, especially if you're having some type of difficulty. And many individuals struggle with and due to body image, low self-esteem, etc.
Yeah.
Okay. And one more question in the chat from Julie. What about inner circle dynamics, the name calling that we do, and how does that impact body image, and what can we do about it?
Yeah, definitely. Especially going back, I mean, we can only talk about what we know, right? In Hispanic cultures, it's really common to say, "Ay, gordita," or "You're my gorda," or whatever. And it's sweet, but it also connotate, it get in an image in your head, well, that this person feels that I'm heavier than the other person. And that's in a nice way. But even, you know, we talk about ourselves all the time. We have negative self-talk, and it's obviously perpetuated from what we hear from others. So I do think that plays a big role, is how we talk to each other and about each other in our own, you know, we've got to empower ourselves and our friends and even our peers, and not focus on body image as a way to address others or to criticize.
Okay.
I think that and going back on what Celia said, I am guilty of I was called out by my 2-year-old niece recently, and that sucked. A bad habit, and I've been in Celia's office before, and like my niece will call and I get all excited, right? And I say things like, hey, this is my little song, so okay. I'm like, hey fat, hey fatty, 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 fat, and like that, like she's so, and I just want to eat her. Right. And I remember getting called out, and like my sister said to me, sis, I'm like, what? You know, and she goes, ooh, you know what Mia said to me? And I'm thinking that she's making this up, right? I'm like, no, like what? She's 2. Like, what did she say? And she's like, she asked me, was she fat? And I go, no way. So then she gets on the FaceTime with me, because I mean, I have a whole song and dance. Like I do a whole dance and she's dancing. And at the end of the routine, she says to me, TT, I'm fat.
Oh,
it killed me. It, and working in this field and doing both behavioral health and primary care, I know better, right? And I think that one of the questions was, well, what should we be doing? We should be doing better.
Yeah, but why? My question is, why is that bad automatically? So first of all, that fat is like a negative word. Why is it a negative word? And why, you know, why, what is it? What does that mean? And why is that bad automatically?
And that's, and as we said, it's about culturally, it's about how we were raised. It's about what's perpetuated across the internet, what's you know, what's done in school and different things like that. And when even when certain words, because we have to be cognizant of that these words do hurt, we have to, and it's sad, but we have to now teach, but also work within constraints somewhat.
So right? I'm really appreciative of the Black American community when they coined the term PHAT, fat, which was a positive spin on the word fat. I really appreciate it. So I would have told your niece, no, my love, to me, that means you're delicious, that you're adorable, that you're...
I absolutely went in. Trust me, I absolutely went in, you know, because that's my little fat.
Yeah. So you're PHAT fat, not FAT fat.
It's super funny because we have to kind of just be aware.
Yeah.
And being aware is the first step. Because if you don't think anything is wrong with it, or you don't think that what you do actually contributes and adds to it, and it's not adding to the conversation, sometimes it's taking away from the conversation. Like, we have to be aware of that.
Yeah. So if we're talking, on the other hand, talking about awareness, we have to be aware. We're talking from the perspective of those of us who may be a little quote unquote overweight. What about those who are underweight?
Right.
What about those who, I have a granddaughter who's very thin.
Mhm.
And that's been a major problem for her.
Yeah.
She's not anorexic, but she's very thin.
Yeah.
So what do we say about that in body image, and how do we deal with that in body image? What advice do we have? What suggestion for young people or even older people who that's a question for them?
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is acknowledging that everybody's feelings is different. Like, even though you might think, oh, skinny, oh, but you don't have an issue, but to them is an issue.
Right.
And you have to acknowledge and just support them and be like, okay, I understand where you're coming from, let me see how I can help you. But a lot of individuals, and including myself, because I actually work with one of my coworkers, and she's super thin, and she's been working on gaining weight for like 3 months, and she hasn't been able to gain the weight, and that frustrates her. And I noticed that to her it was a big deal, just
And
like,
so automatically in my head, Maddie, as you're saying that, I'm like, that's not a problem. I wish I had that problem automatically in my head, which is horrible, right? It's horrible because we're not, but I, like, seriously, like, it took everything in my power to not roll my eyes with that statement.
That's how we think, and that's the
horrible.
challenge that we have. We have a whole culture that's built around you either have to be this or that. And if not, then there must be something wrong with you. It's a lot to deal with in terms of self-esteem.
It's definitely a lot to deal with. And I also think back to our LGBTQI.
Even worse.
Yeah, it's even, it's, I can only imagine in regards to not only doing, especially someone they're doing the transitioning process or whatever it is, having to choose, like, am I going to choose this way or choose that way? And then it's like, well, do you even really have a choice? It's kind of, it's nature versus nurture in regards to, the hormones, or, it's the chips kind of fall where they may. And then having to now try to fit within society's norm of what is this and what is that. And that also plays a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to look at it, Shaquan, through a different lens, what would that lens look like? How would we see it?
All right. That lens for me would be a true lens of a spectrum and diversity, and knowing that falling anywhere on that spectrum can be your normal, right? Everybody's worrying about what is normal, what is this. And even when I was looking at the BMI, and just so I can make sure I can give you guys the most up-to-date, accurate information, right? It's kind of like, I don't like what they consider someone saying normal weight, right? Like, that's the normal weight. And really just embracing your body and starting and meeting our patients or individuals in general where they are, right? We got to meet you where you are. We got to assess where you are. We have to have you embrace where you are and determine whether or not what you think, because you have to be driven by the patient, what you think can either be done differently, or if what you're expecting is truly even realistic, right? So when we look at the BMI, right, we look at BMI and they consider, well, first let me tell you what BMI is, right? It is an indicator where you're actually looking at your body weight in kilograms dividing by the square of the person height in meters, right? So if you look at the table to the right, these are people that are all the same weight, right? You look at it and you're like, no, there's no way. They're all the same weight. Their bodies are obviously all different, shaped completely different. And that's why I kind of felt like this slide was extremely important, because, when you're looking at these women across these different spectrums, you want to just make sure what people consider healthy, and really just looking at it and say, okay, you know what is my healthy, and what do I need to do to be healthy, not only outside, but more, inside, right? So I'm looking at it more from a medical standpoint and saying that when I explain to you what a BMI is, then anything under 18.5 is considered underweight, right? But the normal weight is considered 18.5 to 24.5. You're considered overweight between 25 and 29.9. Then you're considered obese between 30 and 39.9, morbidly obese 40 to 45, and then super morbidly obese 40 or above, right? So I'm looking at it as not only that, because the BMI, we hear this all the time. We go to the doctor and I tell you, hey, your BMI is high, right? Your BMI is elevated. We got to get your BMI down. But is it really a true indicator? I would say it's a combination of everything, because BMI doesn't take into account your fat versus your muscle and how that looks and how that increases or decreases a person's BMI. It doesn't take into account your actual body shape. It doesn't take into account your genetic disposition, culturally, your ethnic makeup. I just want to make sure that when we're looking at all of these women across all these different spectrums, we just look at trying to maintain healthy and incorporating things that we can change. I can't change, I'm Black or mixed race, so you can't change she's Hispanic, neither can Maddie, right? So these are things that we can't change, and we have to embrace these things that we can't change. But there's things that we can change, right? And things that we can change are basically our diet and exercise regimen. But along with looking at our diet and exercise regimen, because of when you have a higher BMI rate, the likelihood of having metabolic syndrome, such as different conditions where the blood pressure goes up, high blood sugar, excessive fat or high cholesterol. Like, in addition to all of these things, some of them are familial link, but when we can incorporate at least some diet and exercise, and sometimes, the medication regimen that sometimes goes along with it, right? So we have to look at it through a different lens and make it not cookie cut for everyone.
That's interesting, Shaquan, because I don't mean to interrupt you, but every time I go to the doctor, and you're not my provider, but maybe you should be. But no, my provider here, it hasn't happened in this agency really, but because I go to the doctor here. But outside, I would always get, and they're right? So I'm wondering that if I get to a healthy BMI, which now I'm not, according to BMI standards, and I still have, rolls and I'm still heavier, will they change their tune? Because I always get, well, you need to lose weight. Like, I had back aches. Well, that's because you need to lose weight, or because you're heavy in your middle. So I wonder if also in the medical community, I think they also need to change the way they talk to people. I know a lot of people that are trying to get pregnant and they're overweight, and the doctor automatically attributes they're not able to get pregnant because they're overweight, without even trying to check for PCOS or something like that might occur to anybody of any weight. So, I think that also.
That's why it's so important to meet your patients where they are and not do those cookie cut plans, and really sit down and have those hard conversations with them. And sometimes, I want to be very clear that sometimes it is, hey, you need to lose weight, right? Sometimes it is, hey, I need to lose weight. But it's also a culmination of a lot of different things.
But do you imagine saying that like that to somebody who knows that is the mantra in their head? I need to lose weight. I'm fat. I'm fat. I'm fat. Then you go to a professional, and yes, that's what you have to do. But is there another way, maybe, or is there? I don't know. I get that that's the truth, but where can we get you so you're healthy? Maybe the losing weight is not the right word.
Focus on the health.
They are is so important. That's why getting them where they are is so imperative, to make sure that you prepare a plan for that particular individual to help them achieve, or at least come, because sometimes, let's be realistic, sometimes things are not always at easy grabs or always achievable at that moment. That's why we're meeting where they are and allowing them to work a plan. And that's what the beauty of CHI is, and I'm not trying to throw a plug in, we have a lot of different services, like nutritional services. We have the behavioral health services, because maybe, it may not only, maybe a combination of things. It may, yes, be medical, but then we have the behavioral health aspect, and that's why the integration services and pass off is key.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to give the ladies who are participating with us an opportunity to ask a question directly of you through the chat. But I want to also ask, does body image change over time? Do these things adjust? And when we find ourselves in a transition in life, does that change? How does that impact body image?
Absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. And like I like what Shaquan said. I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and I can tell you that a lot of individuals that have anxiety overeat.
Mhm.
And the reason they're overweight is because they're not treating the anxiety, or they're not getting the proper psychotherapy. And I get this time and time again, and there's a lot of stigma in mental health, and they're like, oh no, but I'm good. But you're comforting with food, and you rather not take medication that's actually going to make you feel better. So there's a lot of stigma, and also we have to look at all the new procedures they're doing now with aesthetics. They're doing sculpting. Now they're doing so many things, and people are actually becoming very obsessive over this.
Yes.
Mhm.
Obsessive. I've had clients spending thousands of dollars in sculpting every month. I need to take off this wrinkle. I need to take off the, oh, now they have a procedure where you take off the H marks from your hands. And I'm like, what is this?
So that leads us to the question of reality, the real versus reality, and how we're approaching our lives.
And that is, yes, absolutely. Like,
So we're trying to have a filter walk around with us at all times. By
There you go.
we're like trying to filter ourselves in the real.
and this is why we have to look at it through a different lens. We have to sometimes, like, Maddie says, we don't always take selfies, right? Because of the fact that this is what happens. So, and this is what we teach our young, right, who are already impressionable. And not only the young that are impressionable, it can be someone who's going through a situation at that time. And body dysmorphic disorder, it's real, right? That it's definitely a condition that is real. When you become so obsessed with a small physical defect or something minor that may not even be there at all. And just understanding and really teaching our children at this time or whatever that, this is not what you see is not always what you get. And letting them be okay with that and really allowing them to see images as such. And being able to say, well, you know what, your final product was this, Jessica, but look at this. This is what it initially started off with. And it's very funny because my daughter does photography, and she has her own business. So she does photography and she does amazing. Like, I'm looking at some of these pictures and I'm thinking to myself, man, like, this isn't even like the same person. And when she sends the final product, she sends both the edited and non-edited versions. And just, I think that it's always, I know a lot of times people don't send the unedited versions. They only send the customer the edited versions because they want this, this grand presentation, grand finale. But also, I think that it's very important for individuals to really understand, embrace, and just being okay with, this is normal. This is what normal is.
Okay, and so as we kind of move just one step further, we just talked about the real versus the reality. Can someone say a little bit more about social media and traditional media, and how pervasive is that impact on us? And what do we do on a very practical level to convince ourselves that we don't have to look like what we see, and that what we're seeing on the screen really isn't what that person looks like. So why am I comparing? What can we do?
I just want to say social media distorts a woman's body into something that it's not. It creates a poor and perpetuates a poor message. It really alters self-esteem. It gives people the idea of poor body image. It causes eating disorder, and it gives this false sense of unrealistic beauty expectations.
Yeah, that's definitely
That's a mouthful.
Let's give the example with J-Lo. Like, I get this all the time. How can she be 51 or 50 and looking so good? And I'm like, well, with my teenagers, well, she has millions of dollars. She has a private chef that cooks her meals and measures her food. She has tons of cosmetic artists. So because that is her job. That her body is her job. And
she also works at it. She exercises.
yes.
You know, she always boasts that she doesn't drink. She's never smoked. She tries to maintain healthy, which I think that's in what you were saying, Carol, as to how do we get to a place where we're comfortable, is I think that's going with Shaquan's message is just be healthy. You know, just try to be your healthiest self. And if you're healthy, like I can tell you, I'm overweight, but I'm not pre-diabetic. I don't have high blood pressure. I don't have, when I was pregnant with my child, I gained like 90 pounds. The doctor said, listen, as long as your pressure is fine and you're comfortable eating for 2, or 3, like you're eating, then that's up to you. But, just be your healthiest self, or try to be, do things that are for your health and not so much to lose weight, because there's going to come a time, and it's already here for me, where that's not easy anymore. I'm 43 years old, and I won't lose weight as fast as I probably could have in my 20s or teens. So now it's just a matter of being healthy.
I have activity meeting you where you are. You're not 20 anymore. I don't want to be 20 though. Exercise to accommodate your body style. And, we get on these little fad diets and we say, man, we're going to run 5. And we're like, man, my knees are not going to be able to do that anymore. Like, my track days are over. But being able to truly integrate exercises that truly incorporate your body style and your body mechanics, and whatever some of the limitations that you may have because of, arthritis or back issues or whatever it is, just really trying to work within those constraints. And the number one for me is don't be afraid to ask for assistance.
Yeah, definitely.
That's right. We're going to be, as we kind of move toward a close of this time, we've talked a lot about body image. Okay. And you've given some great suggestions for us in terms of how we move past some of that negative body image. But could you, just before we start moving to close, could you talk a little bit about body acceptance? I know you've been doing it throughout, but you did such a great summary on what we could be doing. Could you do some kind of a quick summary on accepting the body, accepting who you are, and receiving that message in a positive way?
So I think that's harder than anything else that we've talked about. That's good. That's an uphill battle. That's a lot of self-therapy. A lot of people have to look inside themselves to start doing that. And I don't know. I feel that's the hardest part. It's, to me, it's easier said than done, accepting everything about you the way you are. I don't know. That's like a hierarchy that we're not, Maslow's hierarchy, if you guys know anything about that we're struggling to reach, is, accepting of self.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else? Manny or Shaquan? Well, we're going to move to.
I really think that we need to embrace. We need to really, and I think it starts early. So it's very hard to undo everything, right? Coming from a behavioral health world and working also now in the medical side, it is hard to undo everything. So we have to start somewhere, and we have to start, and I always say young, embracing, so that they're already taught that, so that as they get 20, 30 or 40 or 50, you know, they can dig back into themselves and be able to find that and say, you know what, let's start with embracing. Let's start with meeting people where they are. Let's start with embracing.
Okay. You mentioned J-Lo. One of you mentioned J-Lo as an example. And so we can have some really unrealistic expectations or assumptions about, you know, our own lives when we start comparing them to J-Lo. What about how do we change and transform some of that to some helpful assumptions, something more realistic, you know, that is right for us? Any one hint you want to give while we invite others to while we invite our audience to send some things to the chat now?
I saw actually something on the chat that kind of plays into what you were saying about negative self-talk. It's really reframing, you know, the message. Like, instead of saying, I can't do that, how can I do this? How can this be done? So like reframing the thoughts in your head. I don't deserve that. Or, you know, this is my opportunity. What opportunity can I create for myself and win little small goals? So it's negative self-talk is the devil, and we all do it, and it's really big on our it really plays into our cognition, and it's very hard to combat. It goes into self-acceptance, and so reframing that, you know, when you feel, okay, there's no point, you know, what's the point? How can you do things differently? What are your small goals? If it's drinking more water or not drinking soda, or just small wins. I know that that's easier said than done. I've been there. I've done every diet in the book. I've done, you know, all kinds of things, and I feel like I'm in a point now where I'm like, okay, whatever, this is me, but I'm gonna do small things to be healthier. And it's really just reframing, changing your own thoughts. It's hard, it's easier said than done, but it's reframing the actual thing that's coming into your head. I can't do that. No, how can this be done? What can I do to get there?
And as Celia said, a good technique is talking to yourself.
Yeah.
I talk to myself all the time. In the morning, and if I'm not feeling well, I'm like, okay, why do I feel fat, or why do I feel bloated? Where are these feelings coming from? Usually they're coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
Your negativity, the way you view yourself, comes from somewhere. For example, I can tell you that my body image and self-esteem drags from childhood. Yeah. So I know that when I was growing up, I had to be a certain way, and I had to be like this, and I had to eat this, and I had to look like this. So I know that's still dragged into my adulthood, and I know that's where my negative self-talk's coming from. So I control my own thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We want to invite our audience now to, if you would like to say something, we are going to unmute, and so that you can actually speak to us. So we hope that you will ask a question, share an experience. What's the thing that you wish we had covered that we didn't? Is there something that you want to ask right now, or comment you want to make? We want to give you the freedom to do that. Anyone?
I want to say about the positive, the combating negative self-talk. I want to say positive affirmations and surround yourself with positive people.
Definitely.
Wonderful. I saw someone who was getting ready to speak. Who was that?
That was me. This has been really insightful and very helpful and interesting to really, you know, like take the time to talk about this, because where else, with who else would you talk about this on a normal, you know? So the fact that, you know, this is being put together and having the opportunity to kind of talk about it really makes you realize, like, wow, like there's some things that can definitely change to improve, you know, your overall happiness, really.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to share with us today or have a question for our presenters?
Yes, I did have a question. I was wondering, how do you think body image either did it get better during the pandemic? How did the pandemic kind of affect body image, social media, since we're now all on our phones more often than not, we're in our homes. What do you guys think about that?
I personally think a lot of things got better as society during the pandemic, and the social things that happened, not only the COVID, but socially in general. A lot of movements, a lot of self appreciation, and valuing yourself. So, but at the same time, the whole TikTok onslaught, everybody got on TikTok, but that was good and bad. A lot of it may have worsened people's sense of self if they already felt bad, and seeing all these beautiful people dancing and being happy, and you can't always, that's what people choose to show you, which is a big social media thing. You're seeing what people choose to post. You're not seeing all the outtakes. It's not really live, it's just posted, and if it's live, it's very staged. So I think that's the mindset we have to keep in our heads, that everybody has bad days, bad hair days. They look bad. They didn't sleep right. They gained weight during the pandemic because they were home all the time and eating their hoarded snacks and using their toilet paper.
I think that it also allowed a lot of the celebrities, which I thought was really cool, and they used that platform during the pandemic, being at home a lot, where they really did little posts and actually showed like their messy hair or them with the imperfections, and them just being a slob, or them just doing normal things that because they are normal people,
right,
and showing our youth, as well as other people who are their fans, that man, this is what I look like on a daily basis. Yeah, my hair is messed up on a daily basis. Like, so they didn't have the access, or some did, but some chose not to have the access to those different services that they would. Yeah, exactly. And I was looking at, it was funny because I think it was either last night or this morning, where Will Smith was like, look, I'm in the worst shape of my life.
Bad bod.
Yeah, fine. But he was like, I'm in the worst shape of my life, right? And he posted like this picture of, like you said, a dad bod or whatever, what we consider that.
Yeah.
And I was saying to myself, like, this is
what we need to see. Yeah. We need to see more of real people without their glam. I think our children need to see it more. People committing suicide because of bullying, because of the way they look. 14-year-olds wanting to have nose jobs, such a young age, which is fine. If you don't like something about yourself that can't be changed with some sort of, then, yes, medical advances are out there. Go ahead, but there's always a time, and if you don't have the money, it's not it's supposed to cause you this kind of depression because you can't change that about yourself at this moment in time. So I really think that we need to see more of this real, our idols like Will Smith and Jingle come and show us their real selves. I mean, we had Chloe. I don't know if you guys keep up with the Kardashians, but like Chloe, like completely going berserko because somebody posted a real picture of her, which didn't look half bad, and trying, like, legally battling people for posting it. Why are we there? Like, why is that a bad thing?
You've given us lots of hints about how to come away from that point of view today. And so as we, again, come to a final close, I want to give our audience one more opportunity to ask a question, make a comment. Did you hear anything today that you yourself, any specific thing might put into practice for yourself today? Something that'll be helpful to you as you move past this particular moment. Anybody, if you have that, please share with us now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I actually think social media, it's such an important part right now of like our daily lives. And I really think we should take that into consideration because even though we don't know it, it does make a huge harm in ourselves sometimes. It happens to me. It doesn't have to happen to anyone, but my case particularly, I use social media on a daily basis. at every hour, and I really think I should maybe give it a break sometimes, because sometimes it gets into your head, and it's not okay.
Okay, we have Julie who is trying to speak to us, but she says she's unable to
Just to
uh,
on what
make a comment.
yeah, just
I'm
to
sorry, go ahead, Maddie, while we try to unmute Julie.
Andrea, one good thing that you can do if you like social media, and it's something I do, is that I start following a lot of positive sites. And every day I get a positive quote on my phone.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that that has been a good technique for me to cope on my daily basis. So every morning I wake up and I'm like, oh, look, I got a message. And it says
I love that.
about yourself.
Mhm.
And self-love, and just remember, you are unique, and everybody here is unique, and we are born different, and that's okay.
Okay. All right. So let's see. What are some of our takeaways, and how can we, and let's close with those right now.
Did we get Julie's comment? I think because I saw that she was.
No, we're still waiting for it. If we get it, we'll come back to it. Still waiting for it. She's trying to unmute. Okay, so here are some of our takeaways. We want to start by examining some of the assumptions, and you heard a lot about that today. We want to turn our attention to helpful assumptions, those things that are realistic and flexible, based on actual evidence, but not able to be modified or adapted. We want to look at helpful assumptions, and we heard some of those today. Focus on health. That would be a helpful assumption that we're okay. And if we focus on our health, we can move forward into acceptance. We want to be careful to stay away from unhelpful assumptions that are unrealistic, and unreasonable, like having the JLo body. We want to stay away from those, want to transform those into helpful things that are focused on health. We also want to take a moment and identify, you're not doing that right now, but later, perhaps when you leave, identify something about some appearance assumption you're making about yourself that you would like to adjust. That might be the kind of thing that might be helpful for you to have a conversation about beyond this moment. And so when we're going to get to the point where you can talk to any of our providers from behavioral health, or our primary care providers. We have a list of services that we're going to put on the screen now, so that you'll know a little bit more about Community Health of South Florida. If you are interested, if you need a provider, please consider the fact that we have many services: primary care, pediatrics, dental, pharmacy. We're a one-stop shop, if you will. OBGYN services. We have telehealth, which has been so important during this pandemic. Imaging services, lab services, urgent care, walk-in. We can help you with insurance enrollment if that's something that you need. And of course, behavioral health care, vision. And if you need rides to your doctor's appointments here, we're able to provide transportation for you. We hope that you will reach out to us, perhaps, and talk with us. We have an expert team in behavioral health and primary care and nutrition for you. If you call this number that's on your screen now, you'll be able to reach someone who I'm sure can be of assistance to you. So we've moved to this place of close, but just in case Julie was able to get on, maybe and I still don't see her here. So unfortunately, we never got Julie's comment. Oh, did we? She on now, Julie? I don't like to leave anybody out. No, but we are getting some comments in the chat. Great job, ladies. We want to make sure we pass that along to our presenters. Thank you for sharing from others who are telling us that. But let's put that phone number back up on the screen so that, oh, there's Julie. Julie, you get the last word. Uh-oh. I guess it's not. Julie, if you can put your comment in the chat, that'd be great. Otherwise, here is the phone number once again for you to join us, to call us if you need services, if you want any help with transforming your unhealthy, unhelpful assumptions into healthy assumptions about body image. Thank you, ladies, for joining us for this particular webinar. We don't always take selfies, but we can transform to a great and healthy body image. Thanks again and have a great afternoon.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.